I just check if we have the required number to proceed.
Good afternoon, Chairperson, honorable members and guests. Chairperson, yes, we have the required number to proceed. We have 5 members currently on the platform. We will check as we proceed to ensure that we do have the relevant quorum before we can adopt the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Mwema. Honorable members, our guests, as well as fellow South Africans who are following the deliberations of this committee from different platforms. Let me take this opportunity this afternoon to welcome you officially to this meeting of the Portfolio Committee on Communications in the National Assembly. As you'll be aware, we are meeting this Friday when Parliament is engaged in a series of many plenaries to consider budget votes, having received many reports through committees on the APPs and budget. I therefore understand that you have been hard at work. And for today, we are meeting to look at that work that would have happened over time in the form of consolidated reports to be adopted by the committee as a report of the committee to the House. But because there are also entities that would have been left behind in terms of their annual plans, we'll also be considering that item. So in this regard, I'm going to just quickly deal with the formalities so that we are able to proceed with the meeting. Well, I'm reminded again that as we open, we should not forget, so that it then indicates why the committee's support may not be in full complement as they usually attend. That of course Muslims in the country and the world are starting their Eid today, and wish them all the best. Without waste of time, Mr. Ngoma, I just wanted to deal with the formalities of who has apologized, so as to also take care of what you would have raised as the number that will be required at the time of adoption.
Afternoon once again, Chairperson. Thank you very much. Chairperson, before me, I only have one apology, that of the Deputy of Communications, Mr. Ghana, and no other apologies. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Mr. Ngoma. Honorable members, just to remind ourselves that the meeting is on a virtual platform, and this also goes to our guests. And that as we are on virtual platform, the rules would also apply. And we're therefore reminded that as we're on the platform, let's ensure that our mics are muted and our video cameras switched on until you are recognized to speak by the chair. In that regard, you would have to unmute your mic and on your video camera, so that the viewers at home could also follow the discussions and the people that are making points. Of course, please do indicate if there are challenges with your network connection and that probably the video camera is affected, and will be able to grant you permission to proceed for as long as you are audible for the members to hear. let's please respect that at all times, as there would not be time to remind each other all the time on this. So let's just make sure we always remember that our mics would be open when you speak and your video camera will be switched on unless you have got connection problems. Honorable members, because in the course of meetings, there may also be point of orders raised. Please take note that, again, if you have a point to raise, you would raise your hand on the platform, which will be recognized. And if the chair can see that, will be assisted by the committee support to recognize the member, and only at that point that the member will switch on the mic having been recognized by the chairperson. If you have challenges of network connection that may lead you to be out of the meeting, as you rejoin the meeting, please still observe the rules that you join with your mic muted, so that the background sound do not distract a speaker that may be on the platform at the time that you join. If we keep this in mind, the meeting would indeed run very smooth. As I said, this meeting is now officially opened and you are all welcomed. Without a waste of time, honorable members, that's the agenda for the meeting. Would look at the annual reports first, just to conclude that business. Thereafter, would be taking the reports on the budget votes, starting with the DCDT one and then followed by the GCIS one. And that will take us to the closure of the business for the day. I hope that is now cleared. And the committee support will then help us by flighting the reports, and we'll do as we usually do, go through the report with particular emphasis on observations and recommendations that the committee will be taking forward. Honorable members, as you can see, that's where we are. You will indicate on which page or heading you would want to make an input on. Otherwise, I'll allow the committee support to scroll.
Sorry, Chair, it's Mackenzie.
Mackenzie, on which point?
I'll tell you generally. Chairperson, if there's just one thing I can ask the report writers to do, if we look at, turn on my camera, you can see the good-looking MP. If we can, if we look at page, for example, page 10, at the, I'm not sure where you are. You're on page 11. If you look at page 10, the way the numbers are written in the report, there we are. If you go a bit further, a bit to the top, there's no consistency. As you, there, stop there. There we are. Lastly, the SABC invested 103 million. So if you look at the way we're writing 16.2 million or 17.7 million, and then you go earlier in the report or further in the report, you will see the convention for writing the numbers is deviated from. There's no standard throughout the report. And frankly, this paragraph is the way those numbers should be written. So if I can just ask the Secretariat to check that. And then if I can just say, Chairperson, on both these reports that we're looking at now, I have, you know, it's unfortunate that it took so long for these reports to reach my desk, because you can see the amount of work that's gone into them is significant, and there's certainly a great deal of information in here that was not presented before us at the committee, obviously due to time constraints. But these are really excellent reports, and in fact, I would say these are certainly amongst the best I've ever seen to come out of either Parliament or Council in 15 years. So they really are good reports. So if I can just, you know, it's a pity we didn't receive them earlier, because there's a great deal of information in here. But if we can just look at those conventions in terms of the numbers, Chairperson, I'd appreciate that. Thank you so much.
That's noted, Honorable Mackenzie, and I think consistent with the other reports where you would have raised the same matter. I think the Secretariat takes it in good heart. Can proceed. Just scroll through. That was on page 10. Move to the next page, going down.
Thank you, Chair Mackenzie, again.
Proceed, Honorable Mackenzie.
I'm not going to put my camera on, because you can see I'm dressed properly for this meeting. Chairperson, 2.3.2.1 year decreased by 197 million. Do you see what I mean about the number formats? By 197 million from prior year to 27.4 million. I'm not sure what that is. Look under 2.3.2, there we are, the bottom line. Can you see that 27.4 million? So yes. If that can just be corrected. I don't know, what is that, 274 million? Is it 27.4 million? Is it, I don't know what that figure is. Thank you, Chair. Are you with me, Chairperson? Do you see what I'm talking about?
Yes, Honorable Mackenzie.
Thank you.
So, but as I said, the committee support is noting that so that there's clarity on the final document.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. We, as you just indicated, we take note of Mackenzie, and we can assure this committee that by the time this report goes for publishing, we would have corrected those numbers. Our sincere apologies. It was also due to time constraints, but yes, honorable members, we will correct the numbers. Thank you very much, Chair. I'm then proceeding down.
Please proceed.
Sorry, Chairperson Mackenzie, can we go back to 15, please?
I recognize Honorable Mackenzie.
Thank you, Chair. Just at the top of page 15 under the bullet points. There we are. Stop. There we are. That last bullet point, the approval of the 2020-2023 research plan was approved by ExCo in Q1. Etc. It was not approved in Q4 due, and here I don't understand what this means, due to incompleteness and measurability of the plan submitted for consideration. Perhaps it's supposed to be to incompleteness of the measure, incompleteness in measurability of the plan. submitted for. So perhaps "and" should be changed. There we are. That's it. I think that's probably about right. And then just moving down from that to 1, 2, 3, the third paragraph, second paragraph from the bottom, set-top boxes at qualifying households were 0.37% installations under the quarter review. That sentence doesn't make sense, Chairperson. Set-top boxes as qualifying households were 0.3% installations under the quarter review. I have no idea what that means, Chair. I can't even suggest an alternative sentence because I don't know what it means. Where's the target? Were 0.37% installations under the target in the quarter under review? I don't know, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I would request my colleague, Mr. Maleka, just to attend to that whilst we proceed with the report, but we will definitely come back to correct what Mr. Mackenzie has raised. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ngoma. Please, let's proceed.
Thank you.
Chairperson.
Go ahead.
Thanks. Chairperson, just on page 16, there was just a small omission in, so it's towards the bottom of the page, second last line, before or above the 3.2.1 paragraph beginning, should say Treasury to retain surplus funds for the amounts. There was just an article missing there for the amounts of 340 million.
Chair, it's Mackenzie. Thank you. Just
proceed, Honourable Mackenzie.
Thank you, Chair. Just to reinforce the consistency in numbering, that 340.377 million is written very strangely. And then also, if you get to 3.2.1, expenses and related liabilities to an amount of 648K. If they can lose the K, yeah, exactly. Thank you, gentlemen.
Okay, that matters agreed would be looked at as the document gets cleaned up, maybe to save time. That would take it as a principal point, and the committee would have to go through that. I'm saying in terms of cleaning up the document as the support staff. Proceed.
Chairperson, Honourable Mbele.
Honourable Mbele. Yes.
On page 19, the last sentence of the second last paragraph before the start of title paragraph 4 on SAPO. I'm not sure if the drafter of the reports kind of switched from third person to first person in their thinking as they were writing, but it says, consequently, I was unable to determine whether any adjustments were required. That just needs to be third person, maybe to say consequently, oh, it's the AG. Okay, great.
Thank you, Honourable Mbele. And the committee support was there with Honorable Mpele. I think this mic remains open for some time. And if you can also just address that you reduce the co-hosts, right? We'll have problems. I was trying to mute it, but it's also a co-host. If you can also address that. Who are now on observations, right? As I said, they would have to take a bit of time so that if members have got points to raise there, as well as the recommendations, because that's where we'll also be doing our follow-ups on resolutions that we take. But as you do that, honorable members, I wish to remind the meeting that the reports we are dealing with, like Honorable Mackenzie would have said earlier on, are as matters stood at the time. And I'm raising this because there is a likelihood of looking at it from the recent reports we have received on APPs, when the reports are merely about the time when submissions were made before the Auditor General for consideration, which is 2019, 2020, the main. So I think it's very important to keep that in mind so that we do not conflict it with the recent reports we have just dealt with on the APPs and budget. Otherwise, we are on observations. If we can just go through that.
Chair, it's Mbele, if I may come in.
On SABC.
Yes.
Mbele, let me note then. Yourself, any other member? Honorable Mbele, you can proceed in the meantime.
Thanks, Chair.
Mr. Goma, you'll assist me to check the other hands.
Thanks, Chair. It's just a small grammar issue on the first committee observation, 5.1 Roman numeral 1, because it says the committee noted and appreciated for the annual reports presentation. So either we must just take out that for to say we noted and appreciated, or noted and expressed appreciation for. Either way would be fine. Yeah.
Can move, Mr. Ngoma. We're now in USAASA, Yusuf. SAPO. Mr. Malega.
Honorable members, Honorable Chair, thank you very much. I just wanted to highlight this particular issue on SAPO to say that because the committee held a meeting yesterday for both the annual report and APP, so the recommendations and observations for SAPO would appear to be similar in both the annual report.
Mr. Mlega, excuse me, I don't think
We're struggling to hear you.
Yeah, I think the members are struggling to hear you. You're breaking. Thank you.
It's okay. I'll just post it on the chat. I don't have
Much
my
better now. You can proceed.
Oh, okay. It must have been the video. I was just saying, Chair, to
to caution the members in terms of SAPO, as you will see on the beginning of the center of the paragraph, that because the committee only reviewed the annual report at the same time PP plan, the recommendations and observations for SAPO would appear to be the same in both reports. That's what I was trying to them.
Chair, it's Mackenzie.
Honorable Mackenzie.
Thank you for
Honorable Mackenzie.
Thank you for recognizing me, Chairperson. I wonder if under observations we couldn't add the following, because it was certainly the thing that concerned me the most. And can I suggest that we add in observation around the going concern status of the post office, with great concern, because there was certainly, having tabled the issue of a going concern, firstly, there was no answer, but secondly, there was no light shed on that. So can I suggest that we add in, with great concern, the future sustainability of the SAPO in light of the AG's emphasis of the entity's going concern basis? Would you agree to that, Chairperson?
Challenges, Honorable Mackenzie, because it's in the report.
Chair, can I just request Mr. Mackenzie just to complete the sentence for me?
Yes.
Honorable Mackenzie.
Sorry, let me do that. Let me just get my ducks in a row. With great concern, the future sustainability of the SAPO in light of the AG's emphasis of the entity's going concern basis. Yeah, that's it. Thank you, Chairperson.
I hope you heard me. Mr. Ngoma, just go back on where there's 2.9 billion. Yes, I think it's V1. Yes, I think we just need to make a correction point there, because that's also another point of disagreement that was there. Just to add the back, however, this would have been for 2018-2019 financial year, because that's not for the year under review, which is 2019-20. Okay.
That's an important point, Chair.
Yeah, so if we can then get then to the next page, we will be getting to recommendations, and I would want members to look again in correcting whatever needs to be corrected, so that makes sense. Of course, guided by this thing that it was for a particular time. We are on recommendations.
Chairperson.
Honorable Kubeka.
Thank you, Chairperson. My humble apology on the issue
Honorable
of the.
Taku, I've noted you also. You'll follow.
On the issue of the camera, the network is not good in this side, Chair. Can Chair allow me to speak whilst the camera is switched off?
Yes,
Roman
Honorable Kubeka, we can hear you. You can proceed. We understand the villages.
Thank you, Chair. Roman figure 4, Chair, where we are saying the SABC improves internal controls measures in all procurement processes. Can Chair maybe we can add there the SABC in order that we must give them a force to say, indeed, they must. The SABC must improve internal control measures in all procurement processes, Chair. So I would like just to add that must there in order that it must have that speed to process actually in those controls, Chair. Thank you.
Honorable Kubega, Honorable Faku.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and greetings to yourself and to honorable members. Can we go back to the SAPC?
Mr. Ngoma, don't run very fast. I have noted hands whilst we're still under SAPC. They'll indicate why. All right.
Yeah.
Honorable Faku, please proceed.
Chair, I want to start on point number 2. The SABC must address root causes of performance. SAP addresses, it must say the SABC must address the root causes of performance decline. Number 2, the SABC must also improve annual performance targets. And number 5, the SABC must strengthen internal capacity to deal with audit challenges, as we know that the audit opinion. And number 5, subsection B, the SAB, number 5, subsection A and B, the SABC must improve on its audit report. Subsection A.
My apologies, Honorable Member. Chairperson, I'm taking note. If Honorable Member could indicate for me where we need to put the emphasis of must, because what I will do, if you note at the beginning, it says the committee resolved that the minister should ensure that. So that section will carry those recommendations that members accept.
I'm still on the floor. I'm not sure, Chair, why is Mr. Ngoma speaking?
No, I think what he wants is clarity of the link between the main line that talks to those subsections and what's being proposed, so that he's able to note. So I think that's what he wanted to get, so that the points you are raising can be noted then accordingly. You can then proceed, Honorable Faku.
No, I've noted that headline, Chair, that the committee resolved that the minister should ensure, but I think there must also be an emphasis, you know, as a BC improves this on its, it means that the minute it is also resolved that the minister should ensure the SABC improves on its annual performance, not to say improve, I don't know. And then I think subsection the SABC improves on audit report, okay. 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 No, okay, Chair, and then yeah.
You seem to be having problems with hearing you, Honorable Faku. I'm not sure now if you are done or you just got cut. Honorable Faku.
I think, Chair, so Mr. Goma, if he then says that the committee resolved that the minister must ensure, then I think the points that I wanted to then to highlight, I think that sentence covers those issues.
Okay, Honorable Faku, may I just check if there's any other member I'm leaving on the SABC?
Yes, Chair, can you, it's Honorable Kubega again, Chair. Can you
Honorable
also
Kubega.
there in Roman figure 6 also, as we are asking the SABC also, it must also improve the internal controls, because we were saying just the SABC improve internal controls, and also let it be a force must. Thanks, Chair.
Can I ask one question, Chair? Because now again, I just want to highlight, because this is also in terms of our oversight role as a committee and the minister, because sometimes there's also this issue that we also caution as a committee, the interference of the minister. So I think also maybe as a committee, because these are issues that we have raised as a committee, if we're going to give that responsibility solely to the minister, I don't know, perhaps you can guide us, Chair, because as a committee also we have an oversight role to play.
Okay, Mr. Malika.
Chairperson, sorry, before Mr. Malika comes, can I just quickly assist on the issue of recommending? Yes, Chair, when making recommendations, we make them to the relevant minister, which in this instance would be the Minister of DCDT. And Chairperson, I'm becoming a little worried with the use of the word must, as now Honorable Faku has also raised it, because in terms of procedural procedures of Parliament, we use the word must when we are recommending on a legislative, on a legislated concern that is legislated. So yes, there are some here, but so we'll just have to not use must maybe for all, but as the Secretariat will look at those recommendations that require must, and then develop a paragraph specifically talking to those, and then we look at those that we say the minister should. But just also, Chairperson, to support what Ms. Faku has raised in issue relating to issues of maybe interference. So we will rework the use of the two words on which ones do we which ones require the word must, and which ones we will use the word should. But definitely we will not be using the word must on all the recommendations. Thank you, Chair.
With your permission, Honorable Chair,
Yes,
thank you very much.
Malika.
I am covered mostly by Mr. Ngoma. Just a slight detail difference that I would further propose that perhaps the members be the ones that identify where the must go, instead of a subjective matter from support staff. Like Mr. Ngoma has already elaborated, have standards that we have to abide by. Thank you, Chair.
So that we don't take time on this part, I think we have accepted that what is also important is to understand the weight that the members are trying to give to the recommendations that they are making. And I think in compiling the document, you would ensure that in trying to put that weight, you will also ensure compliance. I don't see it as being a part, but I think what members are trying to bring is that there must be a sense that we are making things to happen, because we've been discussing some of these things over time. But you'll have to just balance with what Mr. Ngoma was saying as we go forward. So I'm not sure if that would help the meeting to at least move it with speed on this. Honorable Mbele, your hand, is it? Can proceed.
Yes, Chairperson, thank you. I wanted to speak to a point on page 31. I just saw we're about to move to that, so I'm hoping I'm not sort of jumping the gun. Oh, Chair, you are muted. We can't hear you.
If the members have no point to raise there, I took it that there's a sense of agreement that members are just emphasizing and giving weight to the recommendations, but the compliance issues would be dealt with as we move. So we can then move to the next page, which is where you are now, Honorable Mbele, if you want to raise a point there. And
Yes.
if there are any other members, if I can get an indication on that.
Okay, thanks very much, Chair. I've just put on my camera for this one because I'm going to be speaking a little bit at length. I want to speak to Roman numeral, what's that? XVI 17 A, which says that's the calling for the. Under the theme of calling for the SABC to improve TV license collection, the department must consider regulating streaming services as alternative or additional fee collection streams. Chairperson, by way of background, my understanding has always been in Parliament that the convention is that when a committee report expresses a committee recommendation, the nature of it would be one that is either unanimous or at least sort of uncontested, sort of uncontroversial. And this recommendation, as framed and stated, is not one that the committee as a whole deliberated on, discussed, and then came to an agreed position across the board. And it's certainly the way it's worded now is, well, in fact, that position is not one that I support, or indeed the DA as a whole supports. We are opposed to the proposal of the SABC imposing license fees on streaming services, simply because they're not adding value in exchange for then receiving that fee. It's simply a levy or a tariff on somebody else's work and value production that then comes to the SABC. So I don't know if it can be rephrased as making explicit that at least on the committee there is a minority view opposing that proposal, or it could clarify that it might be a majority view on the committee. I don't mind either way. It certainly should. There's no issue with it being in the reports as a view coming from some members of the committee, but I would be opposed to the simple statements that the committee, as a unified sort of parliamentary body, is recommending that be the SABC's way forward. I'm done. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, I also see the hand of Honorable Faku.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just and the point raised by Honorable Mbele, and just to agree with him, when the audiovisual white paper was presented, we most certainly did not agree on that. And also we did not come to a resolution that the department regulates streaming services. It's not a discussion that we've had in detail. The audiovisual white paper was presented to us, but we most certainly did not make resolutions as a committee. So yeah, the A and B is not something we agreed to. But we can most certainly say that the SABC must improve the TV license collection process, particularly as we saw in their meeting this week, they have a 75% non-compliance. But A and B, I don't think, as Honorable Mbele says, are an accurate reflection of what we discussed or agreed on as a committee. Thanks, Chair.
Honorable Faku, before I give guidance.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Chair, at least I have not missed most of my committee meetings. This was a resolution of the committee that part of revenue increment for the SABC. This is one of the proposals that we have made. So I support that point A and B. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Faku. Honorable Mbele, if you can lower your hand in case that's the earlier on, unless you left a point. I think on a point that you have raised, yes, there may be a majority view or minority view. Usually what gets to happen on areas of disagreement is that we place it on record that the party reserves its right on this matter in that way. So, so I'm just saying that's how we have handled it before. And of course, on those matters where generally they are not contentious and would agree on them, they would be recorded as such. But usually the party would indicate at all times that whilst they may agree with some of the things raised, but they will reserve their right in that score. So I'm trying to check the two hands that are said to be up. Who wants to speak now? Or is it earlier on?
No, it's a separate point.
Yes, Honorable Mbele, are you raising the hand again for the second time, or is it?
I am, Chair. It's just to respond to the input you just made, but I'll go after Honorable Van Dam.
Okay.
Thanks, Chair. There is a difference between where it's a point of disagreement and there's a majority view, and that's how we always deal with it, and that's when we're always willing to concede to say this is the view that was held. However, we record our objection. However, what must be contained in the report must be accurate and reflective of how things went down. I was at that meeting where we discussed this. I did not miss that meeting, and we most certainly did not agree to this. We did not make a resolution that says that there must be streaming services, there must be a collection of TV license fees. All that happened at that meeting was that the AV paper was presented. We asked a few questions, but Zangeche City, yes, this must happen, and we support the proposals in the AV white paper because there was a whole range of proposals. On the streaming services one in particular, just to make a point, I, for example, asked, it wasn't a DG, it was an official. And I said, there is a concern out there that you're going to collect TV license fees for streaming services. And he denied it and said that that was not at all the intention. It was a misinterpretation, and they absolutely do not intend to do that. So if the department said they're not doing this, it was not what they intended. When did we say, no, department, we disagree with you, we think this needs to happen? We can agree, Chair, to disagree where it's a point of principle, but on a point of accuracy, Chair, I don't think it's a matter of, well, you disagree. It must be an accurate reflection. This didn't take place. It never took place. Thanks, Chair.
Honorable Mbele,
Chairperson.
for the clarity, I note you, Honorable Mlala, but I'm just saying, Honorable Mbele, you wanted to follow up on the clarity on what you asked about majority or minority view on how that gets taken.
Yes.
I've not yet responded to the content as it relates to what is before us. I'll guide that at the end. So
okay.
I was just
No.
indicating so that you understand how the committee would have operated before.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I wanted to make a pointed response to the what you were saying about how at certain times reports will indicate that a party would be reserving their rights in terms of that. That generally is only ever applies if we're talking in terms of a budget vote or BRR reports, or if it's something that Parliament then needs to vote on to pass, like for example, as will happen with the World Radio Conference report that happened previously. But because this is a committee report on the briefings and scrutiny of annual reports, basically, as a matter of principle, I think my dear colleagues would agree, I would very much like for the DA to support this report when it's tabled in Parliament, because it is a reflection of the proceedings, deliberations, and discussions about the annual reports. Annual reports aren't contentious, aren't controversial, so we'd certainly be quite happy and would want to support this report when it's tabled in Parliament. But if it contained an inaccuracy, as Honorable Van Dam outlined, which says, and it's simply about the way it's worded and framed, it's saying that the committee recommends this to the department. And it not being a unanimous view, it can't claim to be a committee view. As I said, it can give detail to say it's a majority view, or at least reflect that there is a minority opposition view to the specific proposal of collecting fees from streaming services. Then I'll be happy. But I'm afraid if it remains in the wording as it is now, despite the excellent work and the effort put into the rest of it and its fantastic content, we will have to object to this report if it claims there was a committee position of unanimously recommending that. Thanks, Chair.
I'm going to take Honorable Blala, followed by Honorable Faku.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Sorry for my camera. I'm not in a good space in terms of the network. But Chair, I really don't know what the debate is all about, because for me the issue is if colleagues are saying this was never discussed, they are not necessarily saying these are the elements that they are objecting. So they are stifling the debates, in my view, because what they should say is that instead of this is what they are proposing. And then if it's a committee majority view in the meeting, which is what it is now, if they have a view on the issue, the discussion should not be whether it was discussed or not. This is what they should say. In terms of this item, this is our concern, this is our objections, so that we deal with the objection in terms of how the report is done. But if they deal with whether this was in a meeting or it was not in a meeting, then we're reviewing the meetings that we held in the previous meeting. So my view, Chair, is that, as you have correctly said it, this was discussed. I also remember this, but it's fine. If the DA has a view, let them present the view so that we engage the view, rather than engage whether it was discussed or not discussed. Thanks, Chair.
Honorable Faku, and I would want to make a ruling after this on how we should.
Thank you Thank you, Chair, very much. I think Honorable Mulalo is covering me because, Chair, I think as a committee we've always been fair to engage each other when we have contrary views. I think that is what the DA was supposed to do, and not say we've never discussed the issue. I think it's important, Chair, because what is important as a committee, we've always tried to put our parties aside into what is best for the country. and not try to popularize our parties. My recommendation, Chair, would be, because the issue of streaming services is still in the pipeline, perhaps what the DA was supposed to propose, as Honorable Mlalo is saying, that for now, let us focus on TV license fees collection, and as a committee, we further debate the streaming services. So it's just a matter, Chair, of us agreeing on something and convincing each other, and not say that it was never discussed. Thank you very much.
Honorable members, as I said, we have spent time on this part. I think there's a point of convergence, and that point is there is no disagreement on the part of the collection processes of the TV license, which also agree to be in that way in terms of improving the same. So I think there's also convergence there. That it's not a matter that it has not been discussed. I'm just saying, even Honorable Van Dam in her input did make the point that this specifically she would have asked in relation to the white paper and how the department responded at the time. So I'm saying discussion would not be the issue, is whether this is what we agreed upon in the committee. And in the committee, there's agreement, as I said, on the TV license collection processes being improved, because it's a revenue stream for the broadcaster. But of course, this also emanates from what members themselves would have raised in terms of how they get to know about their renewals for licenses and so on. So I'm just saying we shouldn't get to a point of dividing the house unnecessarily, where we must record this opposed that agreed to. So there's convergence. If we can agree, honorable members would then make that amendment with what also Honorable Faku has raised as the person who raised the point earlier, that in any way there are still discussions on the audio and visual paper that Honorable Van Dam referred to. Maybe allow that process there, but for purposes of this report, the focus was in the main on collecting the licenses that SABC is showing to people. That collection must go up and then improve by looking at digital approaches to it. I don't want us to really prolong a debate in that regard, so that line is removed from the report.
Thanks, Chair. If I may, in a constructive manner.
Honorable Van Dam, I didn't see your hand, sorry.
Oh, sorry, I was just saying, if I may just make input in a constructive manner. You are muted.
What point, Honorable Van Dam?
No, I was just wanting to say, to speak to Honorable Faku's point that, yes, you know, if we can meet each other halfway, and we're happy with the conceding there, but let's not try and get into a place now where it is ANC versus DA, because that's not how we conduct ourselves, and neither have we as the DA. When it's these reports, we discuss, and where there's points where we disagree, we say, okay, agree to disagree, we'll talk about it in the House. But let's not get into talking about each other in that manner. But yeah, I think the amendment, as is now visible on the screen, I think it's one that we can all agree to. Thanks, Chair, and thanks to Honorable Faku for saying that, you know, let's rather convince each other and meet each other halfway. And I think what's on the screen now is reflective of that, because, you know, we want to support the work that we do as a committee, and your facilitation of a process where all voices matter and carry equal importance. Yeah, so let's just be careful about getting into that combative political space. Thanks, Chair.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's happening with my mic. Even when I want to intervene now, I get problems. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, you are audible, Chair.
Okay, we can in the meantime move to the next line. At least there's a sense of agreement on how we're approaching that matter. If we can move.
Chair, it's Mackenzie.
Mackenzie, you are recognized.
Thank you,
Honorable
Chairperson. Appreciate
Mackenzie,
it.
I hope
Thank you, sir.
can hear you.
Just in keeping with the observation of the committee, can ask in terms of a resolution that we add as follows. Point 8, urgently address the issue of SAPO funding and the going concern issue. Urgently address the issue of SAPO funding and the going concern issue. Thank you. That's it. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Mackenzie. I think it's still consistent with what we have already agreed upon as the committee. If we can do the same there on one, on the year ahead, that probably we have a way of communicating a message that this would apply in 2021, 2022, as this could not be implemented in the 2020, 2021. I'm sure you'd understand I'm referring to the action plan that is said to be the year ahead in the actual report, which SAPO submitted that indeed they couldn't, because their reports were just approved now. Is that the hand, Honorable Van Dam? And then followed by Honorable Faku.
Previous hand, Chair, I'm going to lower it.
Lower the hand. Honorable Faku.
Okay, just on this, the second last point, to ensure that SETA and SAPO, in order to stabilize, speed up the IT. It will not even say, Chair, on that one. It was not only IT. Remember, SAPO is in the process of repositioning itself. It will not say maybe SETA should share some of the learnings that they were trying to reposition themselves. I don't know, because I'm just worried that we're only saying on IT and not focus on other issues. I don't know. I think that was the proposal from the committee. Thank you.
Honorable Faku, I'm sure can work on the wording on that. But I think your point is made, that it should in fact help to reposition SAPO, including on the new platforms that they are introducing. That's on SAPO. It's just that I'm looking for this recommendation that also would be in line with the observation. Remember, in the observations, there is a point of resubmission to Parliament as a result of what has been raised by the AG. And I thought that should also reflect in the recommendations that the annual report as updated be resubmitted to Parliament for compliance. which one thought it's important in that we shouldn't have one info that has been tabled formally in Parliament, which the GCIS has now questioned and had to be updated. Otherwise, it would be seen to be misleading, not only Parliament, but society. Okay, if that's agreed, we can then, that would have been the last, isn't it, Mr. Ngoma? Is that the last page?
Yes, Chairperson, that would be the last page of the annual report of the SAPO and the SABC and USAASA. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Can we then do the formalities then of just adopting the report with the changes or corrections that would have been made? If we can get now formally a mover for adoption of it.
Chair, it's Mbele. If you would grant me the privilege of moving for the approval of the reports by the committee, because I do also just want to thank you for enabling the discussion in such a way that we could then come together on the view of the reports. Because at least speaking for myself, I would certainly be very keen to both affirm the work and the efforts of committee supports in producing the reports, as well as to indicate that the oversight work of the committee in all of these briefings was very fruitful. And so thank you for allowing us to get to a point where the report is one we're all happy with and can unanimously stand behind. So I move formally for the approval.
Yes, Honorable Bele moves, but before I get the second, because once I get the second, the report is done, I see the content advisor, Mr. Malika, raising a hand. Maybe it's a piece of advice, I'm not sure. Before you, Honorable Fako, I just wanted to check if Mr. Malika's hand is up. Mr.
Yes,
Malika,
it is. Yes, Honorable Chair, the hand is up, but I'll be guided by yourselves. It's just to respond to a particular issue that was raised by Honorable Mackenzie. Thank you.
With regard to
it was on page 31 of the report that spoke to the sorry, not page 31. It's the one that was on USAASA, and that was speaking about the set-top box qualification process, which was on page 50. Sorry.
Okay, yes, I remember that. Which Mr. Ngoma said you would work on it whilst we proceed. Yes.
With your indulgence, Chair, I can.
Okay, clarify, because it will be part of the report we have adopted.
Yes, Chair. The nature of how we compile the reports, Honorable Chair, and we use information as it's presented to the committee, either through the actual APP, the detailed document, or the presentation. In this case, this particular paragraph was actually a presentation from USAASA on the date that they appeared before the committee. And as you know, we take it by verbatim. But I'd like to put comfort to the committee to say that we will consult with the department and the relevant officials to clarify that.
Yeah, I've lost Mr. Malika. I'm not sure if other members can hear him.
Can you hear me now? Sorry, I don't know what's going on with my network today. I'm having trouble. Can you hear me now, Shay?
Yes, okay.
Okay, I was saying, I'm not sure where I got cut off, but I was just saying that particular information comes from the presentation made by USAASA to the committee when they appeared before us. So we'll further get clarity from them as to what exactly they were intending to say in that particular paragraph. Thank you.
Yeah, my take is that it doesn't change the fact that the report has been moved for adoption, as I'm going to get a seconder. But what Honorable Mackenzie would have been saying was really to say, let's get to understand what that sentence would mean, or review it to explain whether this is the percentage of the target or not. So that could still be done in that consultation, and we may not need to hold back on the report. Honorable Faku.
Thank you very much, Chair. No, I was going to support second what Honorable Ndele was saying, that I move for second, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Honorable Faku. So the report is formally seconded, and that takes us to the next presentation on the budget falls. So we'll start with the digital technologies.
Thank you, Chair. Mackenzie.
Mackenzie, you recognize.
Thank you, Chairperson. Let me just repeat myself at this stage. Firstly, this report, again, is one of the best reports I've ever read out of Parliament. It is so full of information, and I'd really like to congratulate the Secretariat and the producers of this report in the department for doing such a good job. It really is a very well researched and well put together document. Just on point 6, again, in terms of numbering conventions, you say implementation of 1, and you use the numeral 1. I think traditionally what you do for the numerals 1 to 9, you write them out, and once you get to 10 and above, you use the word. So you would just change that numeral 1 to the word 1. Thank you, Chairperson. It's just a general convention in the Queen's English. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Mackenzie. We can run through.
Chairperson Mackenzie. This is
what page, Honorable Mackenzie?
Page 21.
21.
There we are. You've just gone past it. Go. There we are. On bullet point 8, you know, and I also look at, in this case, bullet point 7. I don't think there's necessarily a change, Chairperson. I would just like to make a comment. And perhaps I missed this in the meeting itself. Introducing the Electronic Communications Amendment Bill in Parliament by March 2024. The term ends in May 2024, and given that, you know, we'll have elections around that time, I doubt very much whether we'll be sitting in March 2024. So, you know, if this is part of the department's plans, what's going to happen? Let me inform the department if they don't know. What's going to happen is they're going to table that bill, and then it's going to fall off at the end of the term, because Parliament will be done. And the same applies to, I guess, the previous point. Just a comment, Chairperson. It just seems a bit strange to put that in. Thank you very much.
Honorable Faku.
I think, Chair, I had the same observation as Honorable Mackenzie, because some of these bills will only be passed in 2024. Can't we move it maybe to say 2023? That is my proposal, Chair.
I'm not sure, honorable members, if that would assist for purposes of the report. That would probably come back to it in the recommendations that we would want them brought forward, more like the advice from the committee. Now, you'll understand that this is also informed by presentations we've received, like the Digital Development Fund, which also seeks to look at repurposing of SETA, is something that is an urgent matter that's being looked at. I'm just raising it in case there may have been typing error in the years that was still covered without changing the whole report, that we said there's a lot of work that has gone into it. So that would be what I would suggest, members, so that we don't forget it when we get to the actual recommendations that we're putting forward. Will that assist you?
Makes sense to me, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Honorable Mackenzie. You can scroll through, Mr. Ngoma. Mr. Ngoma, if you can run through.
He's a public servant. He's probably gone for lunch.
No, it seems he's frozen because he can't hear.
Chair, it's Mbele here. Perhaps one of the other committee support staff who have hosting rights might be able to take over, because everything seems to be frozen.
Honorable Chair, I do not have rights, but I'm sure I can share the copy of my report on the screen, because he was sharing from his screen. I'll see if it allows me.
I think the point made by Honorable Mbele is that you are also a co-host. You can share yours and we'll just get to the page there. Mr. Ngoma is experiencing network problems. I was just speaking to him on the side now. But for us to be able to move forward, if you can quickly assist on that.
Am I now audible, Chairperson?
Better now?
Oh, all right.
Yes.
Yes, Chair, I just wanted to say before I move down, I'm sure Mr. Malika will verify the date, and if we've captured it correctly, then he will also probably
prepare a recommendation if there isn't one in the recommendation section that speaks to maybe the department considering introducing these bills earlier than the date that currently reflects on their annual performance plan. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Ngoma. Can then proceed.
Sorry, Chairperson, can I take you back to page to the top of page 30, please?
Yes, Honorable Mackenzie, you are recognized. You can then.
Thank you. Let's page down to around the middle of the page. There we are, and go down to the 4th bullet point. Then you will see in those bullet points there are another 1, 2, 3 bullet points, or 2 bullet points. Can you just tidy that up, please? Thank you, Chairperson.
Noted, Honorable Mackenzie.
Thank you, Chair. If you can just stop there, please. Thank you, Chair. Through you,
Yes,
you can actually see it's highlighted the spelling of programs. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Mackenzie.
Chair, can I suggest a small change, please, at the bottom of page 40?
Page 40, you can.
Yeah, that last paragraph. It begins the other strategic project. Can I suggest you replace the other with another? And that just, otherwise it seems like, you know, all they're doing, all Centec is doing is 2 projects. That's it. And I'm sure they're a lot busier than that. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Mackenzie. We can then proceed.
Thank you, Chairperson. You can stop there. If you can look at the first bullet point there on the screen, including but not limited to underdeveloped and under-serviced areas. I think that should be under-serviced areas, although given that they last in the queue so often, I guess you could call them under-serviced areas. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you for the correction, Honorable Mackenzie. Continue.
Sorry, Chair, it's Mackenzie again on this page.
Yes, proceed, Honorable Mackenzie.
On bullet point, oh no, I'm sorry, Chairperson. I'm on page 54. I do apologize.
Next page. We
Yeah,
are now on 54.
There we are. Thank you, Chairperson. Just look at bullet point 6, Roman numerals V1. That number there, 4,000 and 9,000, 1,000. I think our last president would have also stumbled over that. Thank you, Chair.
You're out of order, Honorable Mackenzie.
I am, sir. I am. I apologize.
Okay, but to take note the point they are raising there, and the committee support would look at that.
Thank you, Chairperson. As we proceed with the report, Mr. Maleka will just look into that number. Thank you.
Okay, let's proceed.
Thank you, Chair. The Chair.
What page, Honorable Mackenzie?
Exactly where we are.
Okay.
Second paragraph. Chairperson, if I got the report, a lot earlier in time, I could have, done these small changes and sent them back as I usually do. Compensation of employees. We're missing an O there. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Yes, I'll make my comments at the end. Let's move.
Chair, just a general comment here, please.
Yes,
in terms of naming conventions, the entity is known as .zadna, because the .za is, of course, the domain name. And if you go through the paragraph, you'll see there's several instances where it's just called Zadna instead of the .zadna, if that could be corrected for consistency's sake. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Mackenzie.
Thank you, Chair. That's noted and will be corrected.
Now we are now on observations. As I usually do, is to allow you space, because that's also an area that we would need to follow up on going forward. We are now on the department. May I then check if members on this one, they have areas to raise? Then we can scroll. CASA.
Chairperson Mackenzie.
Honorable Mackenzie.
Thank you. Just looking at bullet point 5 on the second page on the screen, second line, as well as condone criminal sentences. I think the point we tried to make there was make the public aware of the substantial sentences that are meted out, and meted is spelled M-E-T-E-D. So if we can, base station equipment, as well as the significant or substantial sentences meted out, therefore.
Sorry, Mr. Mackenzie, if you could just repeat that, your addition, my apologies.
Sure, so it reads theft of base station equipment, as well as raise awareness. There, start there, right? Raise awareness of the substantial criminal sentence. Yeah, so take out condone. Yeah, substantial criminal sentence meted out there, therefore. And then that's it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Mackenzie. Just checking before I make the input on 5, just to check if there's any member that I may not be seeing. And then if not, I'm just trying to get my notes here. There's just on the ICASA, again, there's this part about treasury and the funding. I think we need to just get the wording proper there, so that there's the flow in that discussion. I think that's V1 as followed by V2. Okay, I note you, Honorable Faku. Maybe let me just conclude this point. That probably what we need to be putting there is that maybe on V1, that we noted that the CASA faced budget constraints. However, the department was able to assist with additional funding. So that V2 would then be a point of saying, which is what ICASA has raised in terms of this APP, looking at the cuts in the grant and so on. That then ICASA has requested the National Treasury for additional funding for critical programs that have not been met. And in that score, it would mean that, yes, there is appreciation of the funding assistance that was received at the time, which in the main was about spectrum, but you still have, as a result of the cuts, this point that Treasury may need to attend to also allay the fears of a collapsing regulator in the long run. So I just thought one must bring that point. So if you can work on it. Honorable Faku, I did recognize you.
My apologies,
You can then
Chairperson.
come in.
My apologies, Chair, is that the way I've put it now is that I would like it to be.
This thing of being a host again, I've not been the host, so a lot of messages just pop up. No, not unable. In fact, the department assisted, and that's how the spectrum allocation comes in. All I was saying was that it be noted that ICASA faced budget constraints, which is correct. However, the department was able to assist with additional funding, in particular for spectrum. But then V2 stays as is because it then flows from that. I think that's the point I was trying to make, is that we do appreciate that there was that additional funding, but going forward, there's still a problem of inadequate resources to meet other programs that ICASA has set up. Okay, Honorable Faku.
No, Chair, I was going to make the same input, so I'm covered. Thank you.
Okay, now thank you, Honorable Faku.
Sorry, Chair, can I just add a comment, please?
Yes, Honorable Mackenzie.
Thank you, Chair. Where you said particularly for spectrum allocation, I think that should be spectrum auction. As I understood it, it was a 48 million rand for that. And then if I can just ask that...
yes, no problem, Honorable Mackenzie, accepted.
Thank you, sir. And then bullet point 4, if bullet point 4 can be combined with bullet point 3, because they really are, in essence, they speak to each other. It's not a separate point. If you can see
yes.
my reasoning. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, agreed. I was trying to highlight it here. I don't know how I jumped it. That indeed it's one. I think it would have just been an error, but it's just one line. Thank you. Can we then move to the next? Honorable members, we're now on SABC.
Chair, it's Mbele.
Honorable Mbele.
Just on Roman numeral 5, I think it's just been spotted that there's a
redundant. And then I also note you, Honorable Kubeka.
Roman numeral 5.
Yes, Honorable Mbele.
Yes, Roman numeral 5 under SABC, there was a redundant as there. It said as revenue generation. So yeah. Or maybe it should be as a revenue generation stream, which yeah.
That's still in line with what we've agreed in the other report. Honorable Kubeka, can proceed.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, Roman figure, is it 12? That the SABC has conducted a comprehensive audit of all properties and received approval for disposal. There, Chair, we are actually having an interest and concern to say, on that side of the approval, we would like just to understand and to hear how much is that a proposal of approving the disposal. They have disposed by how much, or if I may say just straight, can we just get a clear report on that in order that we can have an understanding on that side, whilst they have managed to being given an approval with those issues of disposal, to say how much did they dispose in those assets and which assets are being disposed. We are having an interest there. Can we just have a detailed report on that side as a committee? Thank you, Chair.
Okay, honorable members, if Honorable Kubeka would agree that we keep that for the actual recommendation. But from the point of the SABC responding, this is what we observed from the response. I'm sure for honorable members who have been engaged in this, they would remember that at the time of dealing with this turnaround strategy, there was an issue about the assets, which at the time the SABC was still doing the audit, and that would have not come before the committee, but we do appreciate that they have monthly engagements with the shareholder, and in any way they would have not proceeded without also engaging with the shareholder. But as the committee, we may not have such a detail. So it arises as people would complain about this and that. So it helps to put it in the recommendation, if you agree, Honorable Kubeka, that necessarily doesn't change the point of the observation, but as the committee would want that report in the recommendation. So if you can keep it, that we'll get back to it in the recommendation. I'm not sure if it helps the meeting.
Agreed, so Chair.
All right. So Mr. Ngoma, there's no change per se there. We'll come back to the recommendation and add a recommendation. We can then proceed. We're still on the SABC.
Yes, sorry, it's
Honorable Mbele.
Yes, sorry, Chair, I did have my hand up. It's just a suggestion that was triggered by Honorable Kubeka highlighting this point, which is maybe to specify and clarify that the audit issue and the approval was for the disposal of non-core assets, because I do remember the CFO emphasizing that on Wednesday evening. So it was the non-core assets around a property, but they have emphasized that the media assets are not on the table for disposal. So maybe just to clarify that it's for the non-core assets. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Honorable Mbele. Would then, as I said, we're still on SABC on observations. If there's any other point there as we move forward. We're now on USAASA. Yusuf.
Sorry, Chair, it's Mackenzie.
Honorable Mackenzie, you can proceed.
Thank you, Chair. Just at the top of USAASA, page 59.
Page 59, Mr. Mama.
The bottom of page 59.
Page 59.
6.4, there we are. I'm back. 6.4. Down, yeah, more.
Yeah.
There we are.
Okay,
there we are. Yeah. Thank you, Chair. Just a comment. We say in bullet point 2, and welcomed the appointment of the interim board and supported it in its turnaround strategy. And then in the next bullet point, we say we noted with concern that the entity appears to lack the necessary capacity and relevant human capital to deliver on its targets. So if we're supporting a turnaround strategy that lacks the necessary capacity and relevant human capital, I don't support that turnaround strategy, Chairperson. I would say that in fact the turnaround strategy is probably deficient if it doesn't have the necessary people or financial or other resources to deliver on its targets. So can I suggest that, and perhaps we say, supported it in its work on the turnaround strategy? I think that kind of gives us a back door. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Mackenzie. I'm not sure this would assist, but for me, it would be also in the ordering. If you do get the point, Honorable Mackenzie, in the ordering of those points, that probably 3 would have come in first, because that's generally been the complaint. And if 2 becomes 3, it's an understanding that there is some work to respond to the concern that's raised above. I'm not sure if that assists.
It does, Chair. It assists greatly. Thank you.
All right. With that, honorable members were still on USAASA. We're now on SITA 6.5.
Chair Mackenzie.
Honorable Mackenzie.
Thank you, sir. I'm just looking in terms of noting. I think one of the things we noted as very positive regarding SITA was the 500 million spent by the South African police with this entity. I think it was, it was a real vote of confidence in SITA, and certainly we noted that at the time. So I wonder if we could include that as an additional bullet point. But there we are. I see under bullet point 7, yes. They talk with the Department of Police. I'm not sure that's the name of the department, but certainly working well with that. It's not the Department of Police, it's the Department of Justice, I think. If they could change the name of that department under bullet point 7, and then just mention that 500 million additional order, I think, 500 million additional business from the SAPs. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Honorable Mackenzie. The correction would be made. Instead of creating a new line, it's, I think, consultation of 7.
Thank you, Chair.
Yes, so we can then move. Observations on SAPO.
Chairperson Mackenzie.
Honorable Mackenzie.
Can I take us back to the bottom of page 60, please? Bullet point 5. Oh, there, it's at the top of this page. Bullet point 5. There we are.
Yes.
With concern that universal service obligation subsidy was received by the SAPO, I think the point we wanted to note that the SAPO was receiving a universal service obligation subsidy as well as trying to enforce its monopoly, its postal monopoly. So I think that's what we're trying to say. Was received by the SAPO in addition to a postal monopoly. In addition to enforcing or trying to enforce a postal monopoly. I think that's good saying, yeah. Perfect, thank you, Chair. And then take out, although the entity was unable to use effectively, take that out. Thank you, Chair.
I take it that's agreed to, members. Can we then move to?
Thank you, Chair. Chair, on point 6, the improvement of the SAPO audit report. No, the SAPO got an adverse audit report. It was terrible. There was no improvement there at all. There's something like 250 million rand in unauthorized wasteful expenditure. No, Chair.
No, in fact, Honorable Mackenzie, on my notes, I have put a deletion to that because
Thank you,
in
Chair.
any way it doesn't fit into the discussions we're having.
Yeah, exactly.
It may have
Thank
been
you.
an issue for the other one.
Thank you, Chair.
Chair, can I raise something on
Yes.
number 8? On number 8,
B3.
on the staff morale, yes. No, I was going to say, Chair, I don't want us to say that the staff morale was low. Can we say maybe the staff morale was below 50% because I think they had about, I think they had about 42. Sorry, I'm at the airport, so I'm up and down. 42%, but if we say low, I don't know if it's the right word that we must use there.
Okay, Honorable Faku. And then as Honorable Kubeka would follow, we take note of the point they're raising. I think what the administration would do would be to put the percentage. Honorable Kubeka, you can proceed.
No, Chair, I think you have covered me as you have raised to say they rather put it on percentages instead of giving just those. What can I say? Names that will discourage actually. So it's much more better. It will just give us at least a clear indication if it is with percentages, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Honorable Kubeka. We can then proceed. One on Centec. There you will change again. I saw that that probably a typing error or just the issue of copy. We are on Centec, so SAPO would have to be removed there and put Centec.
Well spotted, Umanel. Well spotted.
Thank you. That was Centec. And then the .ZNA, thanks for correcting that now. The .ZNA, that's where we are, honorable members.
Chair, it's Mackenzie.
Yes, Honorable Mackenzie.
Once again, just same point around the use of the name. I see it was corrected in bullet point 1, but if you go through the document, you'll see it. It occurs quite often. Just .ZNA. Thank you, Chair.
All right, thank you, Honorable Mackenzie. We can then proceed. We are now on BBI. Nemisa.
Chairperson Mackenzie.
Honorable Mackenzie.
Thank you. Right where you are on the document, right where the Secretariat is, 7 collabs. I think collabs is just spelled C-O-L-A-B-S. Yeah, or the hyphen would be better. That's it. Thank you, Chair.
All right. Thank you. Can then move. That takes us to FPB. Now we get to what we are recommending to the House. starting with the department. Just remember what we had agreed would bring in the recommendations as it relates to the legislative side.
Yes, well done.
Mr. Ngoma, as I said, just remember there that we would have wanted to put an additional recommendation in bringing forward those bills as opposed to 2024. But of course, understanding that in case it was an error in terms of typing and that would be fine. But in a case that that is there, we are like recommending now so that the department considers that.
Yes, Chair, I'm sure Mr. Maleka has prepared something for us, or maybe we'll at the end before adoption then raise respond to all the other matters that were raised by the committee, which were highlighted on the report, Chair.
All right, that's fine, as long as we keep that in mind. That's the department. If we can get to the next one. We're now on ICASA. I don't see a hand, so you can proceed. Honorable Mackenzie, just keep your mic muted for the background sound. Thank you. We're now on the SABC.
Yes, Chair, let it be Roman figure, is it 8? That one that we are proposing on the side of the minister to submit a detailed report on that issue of the disposal of the assets, Chair. Thanks.
Yes, we are adding it as a recommendation. There.
Chair, just Mbele.
Yeah, yes, Honorable Mpele.
Thanks, Chair. During my first reading of the of this draft report before the meeting, I didn't pick up on this, at least from this angle, but through the lens of the discussion we had in the previous reports. I just want to get clarity that with Roman numeral 5, I initially read that as saying that the SABC must explore the streaming services ecosystem as a space where perhaps the SABC could generate revenue by being a service or content provider. But I'm just wanting clarity as to whether this is not actually referring to the fact that the SABC should be collecting fees from streaming services. It seems ambiguous now, given the previous discussion. But my initial reading of it was that it was saying the SABC in modernizing and sort of innovating, it should look at being having a streaming service aspects. So yeah, I don't want to have a whole debate around it, but just to get that clarity, please.
No, thanks, Honorable Mpele. I think it will also be on the observation side. I think in the context of this, there was a point made that the SABC is not taking the opportunity presented by the streaming services where they themselves will be content people there using the platform, not necessarily relating to the license fees. So there was that part there that they could look at other revenue streams by taking part than leaving it to other
competitors. Yes.
State.
Okay. No, Chair, with that framing, then I'm very happy, and I think it's important that we certainly retain and emphasize this point, because we'll remember that one of the things, or one of the points that the CFO made on Wednesday evening was that one advantage of the satellites TV broadcasters is that their financial model relies on subscription fees, which is the same as for Netflix, and not a variable factor like advertising revenue. So if we can encourage the SABC to move in that space and find their niche, then it'll be very useful. Thanks, Chair.
No, thanks, Honorable Mbele. At least there's agreement on that. We can then, as I said, let's look at that additional recommendation. Yeah, it is the audit and disposal of assets. I know Honorable Mbele said non-core assets, but I would want us not to specify it in that way. But let's just get the audit of assets for disposal, as well as an indication in terms of adherence to the laws of the country in carrying out such processes.
Yes, Chair.
Okay. So that was on SABC. But now back to SAPO.
Mackenzie, Chairperson.
Honorable Mackenzie.
Thank you for recognizing me. Chairperson, on bullet point number 6, SAPO improves its financial status. If we can change that to, with your agreement, SAPO improves its financial position and urgently addresses the going concern issue. That would be perfect. And then, Chairperson, I'm so tempted, please don't, Mr. Maleka, please don't change the report, but I'm so tempted to add a recommendation in under 11 that the SAPO looks for a private sector partner and sells the business, but I don't think I will get agreement. But thank you, Chair, if you can just deal with point 6.
That point was answered when Honorable Mbele raised that there is no consideration of such. That may be very opportunistic of you, Honorable Mbele.
Very, very, very.
Though we're still wide awake, I can tell you that. So, but I think there's a point there on IX. I'm not sure because Honorable Faku was held up elsewhere. Just to check whether it's still consistent to the point that she raised, that it's not limited to the ICT, but looking at everything else to reposition SAPO, the workings with SITA. So I just wanted to check whether to further improve and further improve service delivery, whether she thinks that covers the point that she was making. So I will take it that either she has connection issues there, or at least it covers the point that the service delivery will also include SAPO repositioning itself, right? X would still be fine because that's what, in fact, we agreed upon given the time. X1 is the one that is not agreed to. So don't put the kids. So can we then, with that correction, move to you, Sir Yusuf? On SITA. Yeah, on 3, SITA. On Roman figure 3 there. Digitizes all procurement, but automation is fine because that's what they said in the reshaping of the supply chain that they're automating. I think what's missing there is that processes, including reporting on cancellation of tenders, so that there is online profile, yeah, so that there's an online profiling specifically for public scrutiny than consumption. I hope members agree to this wording, because this is what exactly they said. They said it shouldn't be that they would have cancelled more than 100 tenders and it's left to speculation on what are the reasons and so on. A part of the automation should be about that and putting this online for public scrutiny. Okay. If that's agreed, we can then move to Centec. Then .Z now. So take up BBI. Yeah, maybe you'll correct me there, honorable members, on this 2, Roman figure 2 there. This point about irregular expenditure and eradication as compared to reducing by 20% was more applicable to the USAASA discussion we had. So if it can be placed accordingly.
Chair, I think we're a bit lost in the document. Whereabouts do you want us to go?
All I'm saying, Honorable Mackenzie, we are on BBI 7.9.
Got it. Thank you, Chair.
Right. All I'm raising there is that Roman figure 2 in the main, I know that BBI tried to be responding to it, that they are not really affected. It's just smaller amounts and so on. But in the main, that was about the 20% reduction that USAASA referred to, and wanted to put a point that their planning should be about total eradication than setting themselves up a lower percentage on matters of irregular and wasteful expenditure. So if you can just keep that in mind as you clean up the document so that it goes to where it's supposed to go. On NAMISA. And on FPB would be our last one.
Chair, can I come in here, please?
On FPB, Honorable Mackenzie.
Yes, thank you. I remember bullet point 2 quite well because I'd asked a similar question myself during my first engagement with the FPV, and Honourable Mbele asked a similar question during the meeting. And I think their answer gave us a great deal of comfort, both Honourable Mbele, excuse me for speaking for you, and myself, that the employees at the Film and Publication Board who watch this content, which can be extremely disturbing, that steps are taken to ensure their mental well-being, because they're subjected to an incredible amount, I would imagine, of violent and sexual content. So that point was, can I suggest we say continues to deploy adequate systems, because they certainly have those systems in place. So I think if we're asking them to roll stuff out, they've already got it in place. I mean, they even have Xboxes and things for people to take their minds off what they've seen. So I think if we just change to continues to deploy. Thank you, Chairperson. With the agreement of the committee, of course.
I take it Honorable Mackenzie would not have a problem with that as the committee, because it recognizes that work is happening, like you are saying, giving comfort to the members. But continuing with it would mean still that we endorse and support what they do as we speak. I take it, honorable members, there are no problems with that. If that's agreed,
Agreed, Chair.
Can we again formalize?
Chair, sorry, it's Mbele. I'm not sure, and I can't remember at which point would be most appropriate to make this input. Maybe before the moving and the seconding, which will finalize the reports, is if it could just reflect at the end that the DA reserves our rights on the budget votes, just on the question of the vote itself, because I think we're all very happy with the contents of the reports and how it reflects the proceedings. And specifically on that point, I know it's been said by Honourable Mackenzie a few times before, but just to express the appreciation to the committee support staff involved in drafting this, because there's really a comprehensive, substantive coverage of all the inputs and discussion points that were made by different members in all of these entities and their presentations. It's really quite good to see. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Mbele. Indeed, we are getting to that part of formalizing. Like we said, we've always adopted the report, which takes into account also the note that you reserve your right on the budget vote report. So if I can then get formally a mover for adoption of this report by the committee, as I said, which takes into account your reserved right on the budget vote.
I move for adoption, Chair.
Mover is Honorable Faku. Can I get a seconder?
Honorable Kubega, seconded, Chair.
Honorable Kubega seconds. Will be, of course, we are just above the time that we've set, but the next report should be quite quicker, given that it's just a department and one entity that we're dealing with. Can you ensure that that is flighted, Mr. Ngoma? That's on GCIS and honorable members would follow the same routine of going page by page and will indicate who you want to speak.
Chair, it's Mbele, please.
Yes, Honorable Mbele.
Okay, it was just one general input I wanted to make that stood out for me when I browsed through the reports before the meeting as well, is that on several occasions the word sub-program is not spelled with a hyphen between sub and program, and my understanding is that's the sort of correct sort of writing for that being a compound word, just to put sub hyphen program. So I think that'll just be a matter of, you know, if they use the find function on the top right there, and then just find all the instances of sub program that don't have the hyphen, then it'll cover all of them. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, there's been a response to that. Can we then get to the actual report? So that would be taken care of, Honorable Mbele.
Chair, just on that page 9.
Page 9, Honorable McKenzie. Okay,
Thank you, Chair. If you look at bullet point 1, that shouldn't be a bullet point. It's an introduction to the bullet points. Thank you, Chair.
As we are now on the observations, as I said, we would take it a bit slow in case members would want to enrich the document there. You can then move then slowly.
Chair, I hope that on the second paragraph of the observations, Mr. Mackenzie will be happy with the 5 that is currently there. I couldn't write it in words. It sounds better when it's numerical. The level 5 national lockdown. Thank you, Chair.
I know that's on a lighter note, really. So
yes, through you,
probably-
Chairperson,
Yes.
if I can add to the levity, he's quite right, of course, that 5 is the way it should be. He just needs to capitalize the L in level. That's it. Thank you, Chair.
No, thank you for that. We can then move. On recommendations.
Chair, just a grammatical correction, if you'll allow me.
Proceed, Honorable Mackenzie.
Thank you. On bullet point C, as per the undertaking made by the department, the youth, I think we need to capitalize youth there. Thank you, Chair.
Chairperson, sorry, it's Mbele.
Honorable Mbele.
I was just wondering if is it correct or maybe inconsistent if the 8.1 heading for that section of recommendations is referring to the departments as opposed to GCIS specifically as the entity we had engaged with.
Thank you. Can I proceed, Chair?
Yes, Mr. Mgo.
All right, Chairperson, right in the heading of the report and throughout the report, department, the word the department is used instead of GCIS, and it is explained in the heading that when we refer to the department, we're referring to GCIS, as it is the department that this report is reporting on. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, I'm happy with that, Chair. Thanks.
Connection gone.
Mr. Ngoma, for the clarity, then we can then proceed. The MTDA. If there is no hand that I do not see, honorable members, I take it that takes us to the end of the report. Of course, we'll take into account what has been raised already in the previous budget vote report in terms of the DA reserving its right on the budget vote. I take it to be like that, Honorable Mbele. So
That's correct, Chair. Thank you for preempting me. Thanks, yeah.
Okay, so that we then get the mover and seconder of the report.
Honorable Faku moves for adoption, Chair.
Honorable Faku moves. Can I get a seconder?
Kubega also is seconded.
Honorable Kubeka seconding the report, and therefore the report is adopted by the committee, taking into account that point on recording the reservation. That takes us to the end, honorable members. It's unless there's a point, Mr. Ngoma, that would have been left out in processing these reports to comply with those. Mr. Ngoma? Seems we have lost you. Mr. Ngoma?
I'm not sure if I'm audible, Chair, but I just experienced. Okay, that's wonderful, Chair. Chairperson, what will happen is that we will be tabling these three reports, especially the budget vote and the two budget vote reports later today. So what we will do with Mr. Maleka is just on the few points raised by members on the DCDT budget vote. We'll just highlight them in red, the corrections, and then share them with members. And then before we can table the final report for publishing on the ATC. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Ngoma. I take it that honorable members, with the time that has been allocated, we have used it productively because we're thorough in going through the report, but also understanding the time of receiving the reports, which are more influenced also by our program, which has been very hectic. And in this regard, I would really want to thank you, honorable members, first, in terms of your participation throughout that process, which culminated into this meeting where we are now, saying we're adopting the reports and will be able to meet our obligations of reporting to the House. And I know that this is also as a result of a dedicated, committed staff that gives support to this committee, that in some of these meetings, they finish very late in the evening, but they were able to meet the deadline of submitting the reports to us today for adoption. And as honorable members would have said in the discussions, a lot has gone into preparing these reports. Even with the corrections that get made, I would want to still motivate yourselves that would have not made corrections if there was no report before us that allows us to engage in the way we have engaged. Take it still as a compliment in enriching the document than passing any judgment on the quality of the report, because we are satisfied with the quality of the reports. And on the final document, we do believe that all those matters would have been cleared before the final submission to the House. And in this case, members would be having the final report circulated to members once everything else is cleared. So that's really about that, honorable members. As I said, I will just check if, in terms of the agenda set for the meeting, I think we are done in that regard. Mr. Ngoma, I'm not sure if I will be making a mistake in that regard before I adjourn the meeting.
Chair, I'm not sure if you're speaking, but you're on mute.
I think the network does have its own issues here. I tried to check Mr. Ngoma. He's also trying to call him on the side. I think he's also still experiencing challenges. With that, I take it that he was also to indicate that there is no further item, except that we'll get the report. I must now formally adjourn the meeting until we meet again, honorable members, as guided by our program. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, colleagues. Have a good weekend.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.